So welcome to another war game review from theplayersaid.com. My name's Alexander.
And I'm Grant.
And today we're doing a preview for GameFound, I believe.
Yes.
Is where you'll be able to find the new title from Assault Games. And this is Assault West Front, Sicily 43.
Famously?
Yes.
Right?
Okay.
It's not the Western Front.
Right off the bat,
Yeah.
we played Assault Red Horizon 41 a few years ago. Really enjoyed it. This
East
one
Front.
is now, East Front.
It's
right?
East Front.
Germans, Russians.
That's all you get.
Here we've got West Front, but it's Italy,
Yeah.
right? So it's
It's got
the Mediterranean
Italians, yeah.
theatre. This is Italians, Germans, and Americans. There's also a couple of British markers, which might indicate that there's
Yeah.
a British expansion, maybe in this game found.
So I'm gonna digress on that point because as we're we played the game,
Yes.
we looked through the game, we discussed the game, and then we just kind of perused everything in the box, right? We picked up all the counters, we went through all the rule books, and it's like there's a ton of stuff in there.
Oh my gosh, yes.
That it's a ton of stuff.
Yes.
But like you said, there's a British marker. Now,
There's no British units.
maybe in the campaign, it's like, you're the British and just use this marker. Okay, maybe.
Or more likely is that there is an expansion plan for this. And
Yeah.
it might be on this campaign.
Right.
In which case we look like idiots.
Very
But
true.
they didn't tell us about it.
But the point is, right, there also were some other, like there's an expanded rule set with the campaign, or the command points, I'm sorry.
Yeah, there's a few different kind of levels of rules in the game.
And then you've got the Gila Beachhead campaign. And then you just got individual standalone, line up 8 or 20 counters and you shoot it out. It's a little bit of everything in the box.
And that was one of the joys of the first title, is that it was very flexible, and you will not find more game in a box in a tactical system than you will with this.
I will say this, though. I do think that a lot of the tactical systems do this. It's like they put a lot of content in it because people do get into that groove of, we're going to play a couple scenarios every week for a couple of months until we get through every one of them. We played a ton of Combat Commander over the years. We've also played a ton of OST, Lock and Load Tactical. But I think in this box, there's even more stuff than normal. Like, there's more scenarios and counters and boards than a lot of the other box games that we've seen.
And to me, one of the hallmarks of this system, and it's included in here as well, is that the capacity for variance. Because when you start a scenario, you're going to randomly draw a hand of formations and pick your formations, which tell you what units you get. Or you can do like point-buy systems and things like that. And so that almost breaches into like the world of miniatures, where you're like army building.
I'm building an army.
You can do all of that in here as well, instead of just like, these are the units you have for the scenario, right? That's a lot of tactical systems do that. You can do that here, but you also have all these other options in these bigger scenarios as well to do that, that's something that I really appreciate, because then a scenario will be in itself infinitely replayable.
Sure. Well, and I'll use a real world example, right? The scenario that we have laid out here before us, I think it was called Bunker Hill, if I'm not. And Bunker Hill is a callback.
It was like on the Bunker Hill or something like that. It was something.
Which, Bunker Hill is a callback to the American Revolutionary War for an American, but it's like a hill with bunkers on it, right? It's just. But as we sat there and we discussed, okay, here's what the setup is, here's what the victory conditions are, and you kind of look at your guys and you can start building somewhat of a little bit of a strategy. Right? The riflemen that I got had indirect fire rifle grenades because I was like, okay, it's hard to spot because we've got these slopes and these ridges. So maybe that was useful. Ultimately, it didn't turn out to be useful, but that's part of it, right? I also knew they were a little bit better at hand-to-hand, the guys that I took. So I had a little better dice than I think the Italian infantry. So I was like, oh, okay, I'm going to set myself up to do
play to my strengths.
Yeah, play to my strengths a little bit. And I love that about tactical systems. Now, a lot of tactical systems, they just say you get these 10 units, right? Or 20 units. But this one really allows that flexibility. And like you said, it's like a miniature. I'm building an army. Right? And I think that's a very unique thing to tactical systems. I think there's others that have it. I'm just trying to think what others might have it.
But I think this has it in the largest capacity.
Well, it's kind of a part of its DNA.
Yeah,
That's what you're doing.
It's something I really like about the game as well. The other hallmark of this system, to me, is the dice that you roll. It's got these wonderful custom dice, and you get a whole ton of them. And you're going to be rolling a bunch of dice to attack, but then there's also active defense in this game, which I also really like.
It's very cool, because you never feel just helpless. Right, you're like, oh, at least I can roll.
Yeah, and like
my dice might suck, but at least I can roll.
Or even if you rolled a terrible attack, they might still roll a terrible defense.
Absolutely.
So you always have that chance. I really love games that have active defense. This has that in droves, but it's these cool custom dice with the crits, and then the successes, and then the suppress markers, and there's a little matrix about what can cancel what, and what goes through, and those effects, and the things that you're trying to look for in a given situation, even in like this hex. I want to suppress that guy. I got a bunch of hits, but no suppresses.
Yeah.
Oh, no. You know, there's all sorts of different considerations. You know, terrain might give you more dice, or going, like shooting through degrading terrain gives the defender
an extra
bonus die.
Or if you're moving and firing, right? That's one of your... They get an extra die. So the other cool things about the die is the top are the red, right? They have, I think they only have one blank face. Yeah, I was trying to, so it's just one blank face, right?
And they've got doubles on almost all the other faces.
Except for one, it looks like. Then the next one down is the green.
Is the yellow.
I'm sorry, yellow. And it only has, one blank as well, but not as many doubles. Just not as many doubles. And then green, and then blue is the worst.
Yeah, blue's hot garbage, but it's better than nothing.
Right. I always have enjoyed that in other games that we've played. I'm trying to think. Armageddon War used that.
Yes, it had dice quality based on color.
I've always felt that's a very interesting and unique way to tackle a combat system.
Usually,
and it's fun.
When you have a game with custom dice like that, you get to chuck a bunch of dice instead of just like, I roll 2d6 on my CRT. Great, that's fun, that's fine, but lots of numbers. Here it's like, ooh, I roll some symbols, and it's a bit more. It feels a bit lighter, even though the game itself is like a full-blown tactical game.
Oh, and this game is very crunchy too. I mean, it has a lot of elements, but you're right. It's more engaging. There's a lot more tension. How many times tonight did I roll? Pretty decent roll, 3 or 4 hits.
Yeah.
You know, maybe one skull, a couple of hits, and then a suppress, and you'd be rolling 3 dice, and you just got good dice rolls.
You could cancel all of that stuff, even on just a couple dice.
And that's deflating, but also looking on the other side of it, I'm like, yeah, that's a really cool feature to the system.
Yeah, there's nothing like in every other game, someone rolls boxcars on you, and you're just like,
I'm not going to roll.
I'm dead. Whereas I like a game with active defense, because I just think you get sometimes really cool narrative moments out
Absolutely.
of it as well.
Well, and you also, looking at the battlefield, and I really I love the little battle boards here.
They're wonderful artwork on them.
Excellent. But, you got to check those out, because some, like you said, are degrading, or some offer significant. They have fortifications now, and man, those are really, really powerful. Yes. So as the attacking units, you got to get to the flanks, or even around behind, and then they're not really getting much.
They're slightly less good. They're still decent.
I find that interesting, because it adds another layer of depth to my strategy.
Yes.
I got to figure things out a little differently than just a typical tactical experience. You still have some of that, but it's just not as crunchy, I guess.
So let's talk about some of the things that kind of what added in this, because we played the first edition rules in Assault Red Horizon 41.
And really loved it. We really loved it.
Yeah, good fun. The terrain, I feel, in this is a much larger factor, right?
Yes.
In Easter egg games, there's often like open space. We play with lots of tanks and stuff. You still have that here, but things are a bit closer, a bit narrower. There's more terrain. It's a bit harder to line up a shot. You don't have the line of tanks going.
Yeah, right? Italy was famous for its mountains, its hills, and then its 1,000 river valleys, right?
And you couldn't have raid, and you couldn't do anything.
You couldn't get anywhere. You couldn't go here. You couldn't go there. So you kind of knew where your axis of advance was going to be. And I think looking here, that's been well reflected. There's lots of different types of terrain, and the slopes are a big thing. The really punishing thing about that terrain, the slope terrain, was, man, to go over top of it.
It's the time,
It's like it really ties you up for 2 rounds or 2 segments, right? You have to go over it, and then
you get a yellow marker.
Then you recover,
and it goes to white.
It's just
and then it's
so
off.
interesting. And then if you also, let's say you fired on me as I was trying to go over those slopes,
You just fall back.
could have to fall back. And so you got to really plan that well. You got to think about that. I really enjoyed that.
Yes. So the general situation, the units, all that stuff's new and fresh, which was great. Things that they included, and that's why I've kind of got this box here.
Yeah.
They released a separate expansion a few months after the base game of the original title in the series, which has attack, air, and artillery. This is now included in this big old box.
Yeah.
So you will not be buying a separate expansion for that. It is all in here. You got the play aid, all the cards, all that's already in the box, which is nice. They reworked the close combat rules.
Yep.
And so
Right
the
here.
close combat rules were fairly intricate in the first one. There's still a level of that here with a couple of
But
different
it seemed very
modifiers.
doable.
But
right?
you also roll, I roll my attack and my defense.
Mm-hmm.
You roll your attack and your defense kind of at the same time. And it's very bloody. It's very intense.
Well, I feel like it ratcheted up that tension, right?
Yeah.
I was rolling, but I also knew that you were rolling on me, and we each had defense dice. And that was, I mean, it was risky.
The one thing I actually really thought was interesting in this as well is that most games, close combat is either you go until you die or you go one round only.
Right.
In this one, you go until you die, or at the end of each round, starting
Someone
with the
can
attacker, you can
fall back.
optionally withdraw. So few games have the option to withdraw from close combat.
Because I think it's very hard to do that, right?
Yes.
If you're in close contact and you turn tail and run, all of a sudden they take their bayonets off and they shoot you in the back. I mean,
And I'm not going to, get into is that realistic or not, but that decision point is
Yeah.
a really interesting one.
Sure.
Do I risk going another
Yeah.
round where I could die, but I could kill you?
Yeah.
Like having the option. That's a fun decision to have to make in the middle of this, chucking a bunch of dice
Sure.
and getting a lot of hits.
Well, and I think every time we've ever done, melee combat, hand to hand, it's always a tough choice. Do you, like I did it tonight a couple of times because I had cards that gave me an extra die. So I felt like, okay, my unit quality was a little better. I had an extra green die, which, that was nothing to sneeze at. And ultimately it didn't work out. I killed your guys a couple of times,
Yeah.
but you also bloodied me pretty bad. And
But that's having that option of like, because it's like,
Yeah,
do I
falling
go
back.
in, yes or no? That's great.
Yep.
But it's do I continue with my mistake
Yeah.
or do I pull
out.
back?
Absolutely.
And what does that look like? How does that affect things tactically? That's a fun extra layer that they've put into the game,
Yeah.
which I really liked as well.
I actually really liked how they reworked it. I thought it was a little clearer and a little simpler to kind of carry out.
And there is the graphic design and presentation is actually
Much
really
better.
nice, where they've got like here's the red for attack, here's the green for defense, or they've got red for ranged fire in attack and defense, and that matches to an extent with some of what they've got in the rulebook as well.
Yeah.
Just a little bit clear. There's a few more play aids. I think they put less on them, so it's a bit less crunched up. The other things that they put in, things that we talked about, like the fortification markers, that's all new.
Yeah.
There's fortification markers that you're going to put kind of on hex edges, and there's
Where were those?
all sorts of
There's tons of them.
like full-blown these bunkers, which we used in this scenario. They're all dual-sided with different stuff on them. There's like trenches. There's like gun emplacements,
Yeah, pill boxes. Yeah.
There's all sorts of things. And there's like a whole extra play aid.
Trenches.
So there's the regular terrain chart, which is massive, but then there's like a whole extra fortification chart because it's all new stuff. That was great.
The other thing I really liked about them is I think geometrically they're designed such that
They just
your
slide
counter
in there.
kind of slides in there and creates, somewhat of an emplacement. I thought that was a nice touch.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the unit counters are 1 inch, or maybe slightly bigger because they're dynametric. But the hexes are huge in this game.
They're really big.
Where stacking limit's 1, but you can fit a fortification which goes into a corner and your unit and it fills the whole hex without any overlap.
Well, and then you can even put your damage markers on the side in the same hex. So I really enjoy that those are bigger hexes. I thought that was a good design choice.
And then, you know, just extra little bits of nuance where they've put in like the rules to take a hide action where you can hide, then you become hidden, and then you can ambush someone out of that.
They have these cool little ambush markers.
Yeah, and so that's neat. And they say you'll want to do that when it gets to urban combat. So there's lots of extra stuff, and there's even symbols like on the cards.
Yeah.
There's these little colored symbols, and they say that's for a future expansion. So there's stuff in here we don't even know.
Yeah.
So if you love this system,
there's going to be
there will be more of it. We know that there's probably going to be British at some point.
Yeah.
There's going to be something else with these command cards as well. So there's more to come from it on top of what we've already got, which is an unconscionable amount of game. Oh, the last thing that I wanted to talk about, and it is buried under a bunch of stuff, is that they have a custom insert for this game.
Oh, it's so nice. We'll get a little video of it.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's pictures on the campaign as well, but it is the
really
base game
nice.
is baggies and a lot of baggies.
It was funny. We kind of got our base game out and we were comparing, and we were like, oh boy, it'd be really nice to get one of those for that.
Because the baggies are fine if that's what you want to do, but it's much harder to organize. Whereas, and they did not skimp on the amount of slots, so you can organize everything very easily for ease of access and picking them out.
Well, my guess, there's a lot of slots. I'm sure there's spots for expansions.
I would
right?
hope that that's the case.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a ton of stuff in it, and once you put all of like the boards, which there's a lot of, all of the rules on here, you're gonna lay the game this way, and nothing's going anywhere.
Yeah.
Do not stand it up.
Yeah.
Other little point of order. So the rules of version 2.0, so they got the updates in there. And
so you can use this now with Assault 41.
Is my understanding.
Yeah.
But it's also ring bound.
Oh, very
Which I
nice.
really like. And the campaign book, which is huge,
Yeah,
because it also has... So this has like a full campaign in it, which you play start to finish.
Yep.
And it has individual scenarios as well, which is just like the one-offs that we were doing.
Just as a kind of a view of what it is.
How many pages is it?
I mean, it's a ton. It's over 80, right? So here are the kind of the standalone single scenarios, and you'll find everything from, you know, 1 board to 4 or 5 boards. You've got some beach landings here. We did not play all of these.
We did not do a beach landing, though, but that'll be a fun thing to experience.
We don't have time to necessarily do all of this. But then the front part of the book is all campaign related. So that's about twice what the back part of the book is, give or take 2.5 times.
The campaign rules, but also like the very large amount of scenarios that are in that campaign as well.
But it's very cool. You track losses and all of that on this troop management board, right? Over the course of campaigns and scenarios.
Log as well.
So we did not play the campaign, but to be honest, that's a very unique addition, which I think is pretty cool, because you're in essence going to play 10 or 12 scenarios that all link together. Actually, it's more than that.
It's huge.
Which is kind of cool. And then they have the campaign results, like what were your results? What was major victory or minor victory, etc. So they put a lot of time and effort into that, and I think if you're going to buy this box, you're going to want to invest a lot of time, probably go through that with your wargaming buddy, and I think that's very cool.
You know, it's spiral bound, so
you're
not going to like tear it apart like you do with your rules. If you're playing a campaign like that, you're going to batter your stuff, but it's much easier. It's not going to be closing on you. So that's a little expense that they've gone to, which I really appreciate.
And frankly, as you already mentioned, the graphical design is really good.
Yes.
Like this actually looks, this doesn't look like a small company's graphic design work.
No, and the reality
looks very
this
professional.
Is their second title.
It is, yes. So they've improved some things. These graphics look much better. I thought the boards were way better. I don't think they were hugely different, but they just look a little different.
Yeah, it just feels like everything kind of pops a little bit more.
Yeah.
Which it was really nice to play around with as well. But yeah, I had a great time playing this. It was nice. It's always nice to kind of revisit a system that we've played.
Sure.
And that we're familiar with as well.
Well, and revisit it, but get some new things, right?
Yes.
So you're revisiting it and it feels comfortable. It took us just a few moments and we're like, oh yeah, I remember all this. But then you're like, ooh, these ambush rules are kind of cool. And this hidden concept
That's what's
is cool.
neat, is that we got to like enjoy the new stuff because we know the core rules.
Sure.
And I got to learn a whole new game system kind of a thing. So that was fun. I always liked that as an experience because then it was like, ooh, I can really like the new bits like really come to the fore as we're playing. So that was really enjoyable to experience a lot of that as well. But yeah, Assault Sicily 43 from Assault Games. Lots of assaulting. Check this out if you're interested. In theory, you're watching this on their GameFound campaign, so you can get it at a really good price. But if not, I'm sure they'll have some form of distribution. You might even be able to get it from our good friends at Noble Knight Games. But check this out if this is something you're interested in. But appreciate you very much for tuning in. I've been Alexander for theplayersaid.com.
And I'm Grant.